And welcome back to the Hot Lap, where we are talking one of the let's be honest, most exciting races of the year. Wonderful, supreme, magnificent, starstruck Carlos Sainz. What a Ferrari strategy masterclass for Carlos Sainz. I mean, any other track, and I don't think he potentially wins this race in Japan. They probably would have done another strategy, but he played it absolutely perfect with this strategy. Very similar to like the Monaco strategies, about holding people up a bit, but here you're a bit more vulnerable, I think, where you can overtake. But let's start from the back. And we've got Yuki Tsunoda out, Esteban Ocon out. I mean, Ocon wasn't doing too bad either. Bottas out. But the big one here is George Russell on the last lap, giving it absolutely everything. He almost overcooked his tyres, and we'll get into Russell's race a bit more, ending race. But poor George Russell, he's only got himself to blame, I know, but you had to feel for him. Potentially winning, on the cusp of winning his second ever race, potentially. It wasn't looking likely, though, come the last lap, and then he just bins it. But it was looking likely for a third place. Fernando Alonso, what happened? What happened to the lone, because Lance Stroll did not start, to the lone Aston Martin? Logan Sargent, again, very, very average race. You've got to start wondering, again, as I keep saying, Williams will be like, okay, let's start looking elsewhere. I'm sure they already are. Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas Ferrari, and Nico Hülkenberg 13th in the Haas Ferrari. So, I mean, we got Tsunoda last, Ocon and Bottas, and George Russell DNF. So the last place that finished was Alonso in 15th, Logan Sargent in 14th, Hülkenberg in 13th in the Haas Ferrari. What happened? Him and Magnussen qualified quite high. It just didn't work out for them, did it? And Zhou, 12th, again, average. I mean, Alex Albon 11th, not too bad. I think he started 14th. I don't think he could have got any more out of it. Magnussen, though, first in the points, not bad at all. But other than our top three, one of the stars of the race, no doubt, was Liam Lawson. And I'll tell you what, I mean, Ricciardo and poor Tsunoda obviously finishing last. The pressure's on Tsunoda, and the pressure will be on Ricciardo when he returns. Potentially the earliest is going to be Qatar, isn't it? So it's going to be really interesting when that happens. But Liam Lawson, I think, one of the men of the race, not the man of the race. We've got to throw that to Carlos, haven't we? Sergio Perez 8th, kind of where you probably expected maybe him and Red Bull to be. Oscar Piastri 7th, well done for starting so far back to make it to 7th. Absolutely stunning, absolutely amazing. Piastri showed his class there in a McLaren that's probably not as fast as Lando Norris is. So we've got Pierre Gasly in 6th, Max Verstappen recovering really well in 5th. They'd been started on those hard tyres. They did the alternate strategy, and unfortunately, the safety car kind of went against them, didn't it? A bit sad, so I think you felt really for Red Bull there. They're trying the only strategy they could, I think, to try and get up there. It's a fair play to Red Bull. Charles Leclerc's 4th, bit of a sacrificial lamb for Carlos Sainz, which I would not have expected to say this year, but Leclerc in 4th. Hamilton in 3rd in the Mercedes. I mean, he himself said, basically, in hindsight, the win went out the window when he didn't qualify as well as George Russell. He said, with George Russell's time, when you look at it, we could have got pole. And I think, had the boys, one of those Mercedes started on pole, they may well have won, but it didn't happen. It was Carlos Sainz. So the supreme Carlos Sainz getting pole. And you could understand, in a way, Ferrari looked at it, and I think by starting Leclerc on I believe the different tyres, getting the jump on George Russell, and then becoming a sacrificial lamb to make sure Carlos Sainz, when he pitted, he came out ahead. And it worked. I kind of feel a bit sorry for Leclerc, but at the end of the day, qualify better, I guess. Potentially. For Leclerc, and it didn't happen. And it shows you, though, when the team gets behind one of their drivers, they had the perfect strategy, in hindsight, to win the race. I don't I mean, they didn't have an extra set of mediums, which is why they didn't pit under the virtual safety car near the end with about 20 or so laps to go. But Mercedes with Hamilton and George Russell double stacked, really good. But what you had to say about Lewis Hamilton though, when he came out of the pits on the medium tyres, he was visibly faster. For the first time this weekend, I think he was visibly faster than George Russell. And you have to wonder, had it been the other way around, could this race have been different? Or we'll never know. If is F1 spelled backwards, says Murray, we will never know. Lando Norris in second. Well done to Norris. I can't help but feel that maybe he had enough to try and have a pop. He himself said he didn't have enough. But Carlo Sainz's strategy of holding back, looking after the tyres, because as we know, that Ferrari does like to eat its tyres. But then holding back, allowing Lando Norris just to get with DRS, keeping those two Mercedes away. Brilliant. Brilliant. And when we look at the fastest laps, it's Lewis Hamilton, George Russell on the fastest lap. Hamilton, nearly 4 tenths faster. That 1:35.8. In third was Aston Martin. In fourth was Max Verstappen. And when they did put the tyres on, when Max Verstappen did put those medium tyres on, he was, they were quite fast. I mean, Verstappen fourth, Perez fifth in the fastest run. Pit stop summary. Fastest pit stops was, let me see, it was time of the day 20.07. I mean, it says it's out, but I think that's from like beginning to end. But fastest laps, Lewis Hamilton, well done. And here on the racer.com by Chris Medland, he says Carlos Sainz says his approach of slowing down the cars behind him to prevent them being able to get a strategic advantage over him worked to perfection, and it did, didn't it? As we know, those Mercedes, they saved those 2 sets of tyres for its drivers to open up pit stop options. They said that in qualifying. We said that in our qualifying show. But Sainz, he bunched up the field to prevent those gaps from opening so that people could not pit. In the end, George Russell and Hamilton took that opportunity under that virtual safety car and came charging through. An incredible feeling and an incredible weekend, said Sainz. I want to thank everyone in Ferrari for making this huge effort to turn around and manage to win this season after a tricky beginning. But now we have we nailed a weekend. We nailed a race. We did everything we had to do. We did it perfect, and we brought home a P1 that I'm sure all of Italy, all Ferrari's going to be happy today. Now, given our limitations, he said, with tyre wear and degradation, it was all about managing the beginning of the stints to make sure I made it to the target lap, which that we wanted to do on each compound. Now, obviously, a safety car forced us to pit even earlier than we wanted, and I knew it was going to be a long stint on the hard. George, I had to keep slowing him down to make sure I didn't give him a safety car or a medium tyre opportunity, and it worked to perfection. It was just quite tight at the end, but we gave Lando a bit of DRS to help him, and in the end we made it to P1. Brilliant. Unlike this man here, poor George Russell. This is by Henry Valentine. Podium hopes end in dramatic last lap crash. Yeah, he crashed on the last lap of Singapore, barely half a lap to go. He was following Norris into turn 10 on those fresher medium tyres compared to the used hards for the McLaren man in front. But he appeared to tag the wall. I mean, someone's posted a low-res video here of him tagging the wall. You'll see the wall come up here in a tiny bit. Here we go. And there we go. He tags the wall straight on and is out. I'm not going to show more than that. But yeah, poor George Russell. I mean, we heard his exacerbated no on the team radio as he crashed into that barrier. George himself said I let myself down after that last lap crash. And the crash, as we know, promoted his teammate to third. The very teammate that was basically saying, no, I want George Russell to win tomorrow. I mean, Russell said to Sky, no words to be honest. He said, such a long physical race, difficult to keep concentration when Carlos was doing a great job backing that pack up, not allowing us to do the alternative strategy. So, what went wrong with Red Bull? Well, here we go. Verstappen says everything went against us in the F1 Singapore Grand Prix, and he felt he could have joined the podium battle in the closing stages, but was denied by the worst case safety car timings. And I think potentially could have done. Different strategies. I think had safety cars come out at different times, like we said in our qualifying show, he could have potentially won this race. They had the pace on the medium tyre. So the Red Bull drivers from 11th to 5th, it was hampered by the full race safety car after Logan Sargent's crash, handing a cheap pit stop to those medium people on the medium tyres. Verstappen, remember, started on those hards. Now, his alternate strategy to start on the hards meant he couldn't have taken advantage of it with too long left in the race. So Verstappen also felt the virtual safety car came just after when Esteban stopped on the track just a few laps after he had pitted himself. Now, despite this, Verstappen's tyre advantage on the medium compound over the closing laps allowed him to carve up the order in an eventual 5th after Russell's last lap smacked. He was 6th at the time until the last lap. He said everything went against us as well as in the race with the safety car, so it was possibly the worst case scenario. As I really think if the safety cars worked out a little bit more in our favour, I would have been fighting with the guys at the front, Verstappen said. Especially with that last stint, that was quite easy. He added, it is not what we wanted, but I think today was better, a little bit better, but we're still unlucky during the race with all the safety cars going against us. But as we always began with the first few minutes, Liam Lawson, this is on WTF1.com by Charlie Williams, Liam Lawson's first point-scoring race, he said, was more impressive than you thought. Now, as we know, everyone is on board this Liam Lawson hype train, including WTF1. And Liam was, as we know, called up to replace Danny Ricciardo. And since making his debut, he's really, really shined, hasn't he? Now, with 3 races in, it says to his reserve driver duties, finishing P13 and P11, both Zandvoort and Monza, respectively. Talking to the media, including the Race.com, he revealed it wasn't much later in the race that he realised points were on the cards. He said, before Max and the Red Bulls were coming back at that point, I thought we had a chance. Then I felt it was slipping away again. And I guess when Checo and Albon had their fight and Albon went back, that was when I felt a bit more, comfortable. That, we could at least score P10. And obviously, it was a bonus. I mean, not a bonus to see somebody crash for George, but obviously it means we get an extra point. Securing points in your third ever F1 race is very good, especially in what is one of the slowest cars. But there we go. That is our race results. When we look at the driver standings for this year, obviously Max Verstappen leading, surprise, surprise. Sergio Perez pretty much, I wouldn't say comfortable in second, but given the pace of that Red Bull, probably. Lewis Hamilton, sort of comfortable in third, but you got to wonder, Carlos Sainz form, he could be catch, can't he? Can't he? He's third. I mean, Fernando Alonso is only 10 points behind him, but Carlos Sainz is within, he's 38 points behind him, not a million miles away. And also, with him not being a million miles away, it also means that in respect of the constructor standings, it's not a million miles away. But as we know, it's only really going to be a matter of time. Mercedes and Ferrari are just over the 30-point marks away from each other, with Aston Martin now looking really to finish 4th. Maybe McLaren can catch them. More of the same this weekend, potentially. I think Williams, unless Haas have a really good weekend, are looking fairly safe in 7th. They are 9 points ahead of Haas, but you never know. But I just wanted to say, well done to Carlos Sainz, man of the race. And I think this is his second Grand Prix win, but the first win I think he's truly earned. He was kind of gifted, really, by events that happened outside his control. With Verstappen dropping out, Ferrari completely messing up Leclerc's strategy. But here, he took the balls by the proverbial horns even, and won the race. Well done to Carlos Sainz. This has been the Hot Lap. We'll speak to you next time. And remember, it's going to be race week again.